Shavua Tov, welcome to Transforming Relationships. We got great feedback from last week's presentation, and we're going to continue on with this format. This is the shir is being dedicated to Zecher Nishmat Michael Ben Sarah, and it's being presented by the Chazaq organization and Torah Anytime and Chickens for Shabbos, so we know that it just started the 3 weeks time period, which we're in currently. So we thought maybe some questions related to having some dialogue about this time period might be appropriate. So we know that at the Beis Hamikdash, our rabbis tell us was destroyed, the second Beis Hamikdash, because of baseless hatred, because of evil speech and stuff like that. So there's a well-recognized phrase that they say: "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." But the truth we know is that the Torah teaches us that speech can even be even more damaging than to another individual. So I guess if the rabbi could just elaborate on the power of speech and just how maybe some tips about maybe how we can avoid slander and etc.
Well, okay. Well, lots to unpack there. But I love this format because the questions just come extemporaneously or spontaneously. I don't know what they are in advance, but the wheels start turning. And one of the things I thought of, which is so important, and I haven't spoken about this in a very long time, is and this is on topic but off topic. When it comes to like siblings and about so and so called me a name, I always say it's like you don't call people a name, this and that. I remember seeing a parsha sheet from one of my daughters, and it was so interesting. And they obviously they meant well with it. And it talked about how so and so called say little Rifki a name, and Rifki was so upset, and it made her feel so bad. And I said to my wife, "This is such a bad message." Because what's the message? The message is I'm giving somebody else power over my emotions. Now, one of the familiar refrains in my house, my kids will always say, repeat that I always say it, and that's that you're responsible for your own emotions. You can't say my brother got me upset, so-and-so made me angry. Now, they may have done something not nice, must be fair enough. But the fact that you get upset, you have to be able to own that. So, I'm just going to talk a little bit about, the idea about slander and about gossip, about during this time, and that, when it comes to parenting, you've got this thing, let's say, or in any situation, somebody said something about somebody else, and there's not it's not a blanket approach, meaning don't call so-and-so a name. You hurt your sister, why would you do that, and so on. Here's what it looks like. To the person who called the name, meaning Chaim called Rifki whatever. So Chaim gets a talking to saying that words have power, words can destroy, and exactly what you said when you opened up, the damaging the damage that words cause and the pain that it causes, how we have to be careful with our words. Chaim needs the message with that. But Rifki's message is, what does Chaim's opinion of you do to your identity? Meaning, if depending on the age, how does somebody's perception of you, somebody calling you a name, somebody saying something, change how you feel? The fact that Chaim called you a name, that's not nice, that's on Chaim. But why are you upset? What does it mean when someone calls you a name? Does it mean that you're less? Does it mean that you're not worthy? Does it mean that you're unlovable? What does it say? And when you're able to separate out the message for both people, particularly children, it's much more impactful. Because I believe it's a mistake to go ahead and to reinforce in a child, you can't call somebody a name, you made her cry, blah, blah, blah. Because then when it's turned around on that person, somebody calls them a name, they're going to think, okay, fine, someone called me a name, I can go ahead and cry. Not to say that we're not responsible for pain that we cause other people. To the contrary, of course we are. But it would benefit children as they move into adulthood to recognize that what somebody says to us, what somebody thinks of us, doesn't change us, our identity. We want to make sure that we down the and we look at other people favorably, and we don't go out of our way, certainly not to hurt somebody, to the contrary, but their perception of us doesn't change our identity. And if you're able to inculcate that message into children when they're young, they're going to grow up recognizing that, quite frankly, sticks and stones don't break my bones. Names don't hurt. You shouldn't call people names, but when you hear them, recognize it doesn't mean anything. There's an old saying, what Susie says about Sally says more about Susie than Sally. How's that for a soundbite, right? Meaning that what somebody thinks of us is a confession of their character, speaks volumes of their own emotional health, and tells us exactly who they are, where they are, but means nothing about us. So to transition to adults in terms of the conversation, it would benefit us to recognize during this time that when somebody speaks ill of us, when somebody speaks poorly, when somebody's derogatory, mean, contemptuous, abusive, whatever it is, it means nothing except for the meaning that we assign to it. If we assign a meaning that says it's because I'm less, I'm worthless, I'm not enough, now we're going to get angry and fight an uphill battle against our own nature. But if we recognize all it means is this person is in pain, then we're not in pain. But make no mistake, someone is going to be in pain. It's either the other guy or you. If you're in pain, you come from an egocentric place, this person hurt your feelings, you're going to get upset, and now you've got a confrontation and conflict. Or you can have empathy, recognize it's his stuff, and it doesn't have to be yours.
That sounds great. So on the other side of it, we're talking about something that you were discussing about, let's say, like someone calling some people names and negative speech and stuff. So what about on the opposite side, in the positive light, giving someone a compliment and that topic about, like I read it in the biography put out by Art School of Reb Meir Zlotowitz, said that originally, like he wrote just on Megillas Esther, and then Rav David Cohen Shlita from Brooklyn, he gave him such a compliment and everything, and like that gave him the confidence, the motivation to go to the next level. So like I guess like the power of compliments, and also about what would be, let's say, like, is maybe a compliment also sometimes not justifiable? Let's say, are you reinforcing bad behavior and stuff like that?
Well, once again, great question, lot to unpack there. First, like this, the Torah forbids insincere flattery. You can't go around saying things that aren't true, that you don't believe. Having said that, there are many things that are positive we do believe about people in our lives and our relationships, and we don't tell them. And I'm not in a position to tell anyone that they're stealing or that they're doing an avera for not giving a compliment when it's due. But I can say that if you take the time to acknowledge that person's efforts or to point out something that they're doing that you appreciate, it will go volumes towards improving not just that person's self-esteem or really confidence, but the relationship. Pirkei Avos is replete with examples about how you should treat other people, talking about extol them and give them honor and praise and adulation and accolades. When it comes to our own honor, we're told to run away. Because at the end of the day, as honor is egocentric, what are you going to do with it? Well, what pocket are you going to put honor in? But Chazal didn't say, don't give honor to other people, because they recognize is that relationships, interpersonal relationships, are built on mutual respect and trust. And if somebody doesn't acknowledge our efforts and doesn't take the time to appreciate that, it's going to erode the quality of the relationship. So by all means, particularly with people close to you, I encourage people to go ahead and to just be mindful 3 times a day to give a compliment to somebody close to them. Genuine, again, hey, I appreciate your spouse, how you handle the kids in that situation, or to one of your children, or to even to yourself. What's interesting is that we talk a lot about, sinas chinam and baseless hatred and talking to other people. When it comes to ourselves, we can be our own worst enemy. The voice that we use, the volume that we use, the anger that we speak to ourselves with. I'm not inside of everyone's head, but, I know when I make a mistake in those rare occasions, and I don't always use the kindest voice. It's not like, oh, you know what, Dave? You'll get him next time. That's okay. You fell down, brush yourself off. A Tzaddik falls 7 times. It's like, I can't believe and I have to catch myself. And it's important to catch yourself, because the tone of voice that you use with yourself should be as loving, as compassionate as it would be with your child when they're doing something, that warrants your love and compassion. So I do think that the opportunity to give genuine compliments and praise in our interpersonal relationships is very valuable, but also to ourselves. Let's not mistake that we can be our own worst enemy and we can be hardest on ourselves, and there's no reason to be. There are plenty of people lining up to be hard on us. We don't have to get on the end of that line. We can be in the choir of those that sing our praises and speak to ourselves even when we fall down in a loving, compassionate way, because that's the way we move forward. That's the way other people move forward.
Yeah, and you were touching upon in the middle about baseless hatred, like as we know, it's lashon hara combined with saying together with baseless hatred was but this whole time period of the Beis Hamikdash, like the destruction of Beis Hamikdash. So I guess this I guess if the rabbi, I mean, if you could just define baseless hatred, because sometimes like you might feel that oh, it's justifiable. That the person like, oh, he stole from me, embarrassed me, hurt my feeling. Is
Right.
there ever a hatred which is justifiable? Or?
Right. So look, you know what? It's there's, you know, Chazal talk about lashon hara, for example, being worse than the three other top averos combined, right? Idolatry, adultery, and murder. And yet, people can be very meko with lashon hara. At the same time, as somebody who is observant in their kashrus wouldn't drive by a McDonald's and say, you know what, I'm really hungry. I've got a reason for being hungry. The fast just ended. There's a double whopper, I think that's the other guys, whatever it is. You know, I've got a reason to go ahead and do this. It's perfectly justifiable because it's very clear. It's definitive. They know what is acceptable and what's not. The problem when it comes to sinas chinam, when it comes to lashon hara, when it comes to stohelis or not, is because when you're in the moment and the ego is engaged, it distorts our perspective, and perspective is synonymous with reality, meaning that we do not have the ability to judge in that moment that this is something that's proper for me to do. I have to give tzedakah to you because of what you did. I have to tell you about what Chaim did, and so on. In the moment, you cannot trust yourself because your perspective is narrow. Therefore, I encourage people to take it off the table, meaning it's not even an option. If in the moment you decide that this is something that needs to be said, you're still not going to say it. Afterwards, you can revisit it and decide whether or not you need to go back and say it. But rather to be wrong 1 out of 100 times than wrong 99 out of 100 times, and that's what the Yetzer Hara, the ego, will do. The ego, in that moment, it will go ahead and tell us it's justified, it's not baseless. But with the gift of perspective and time, we realize maybe we shouldn't have said that or done that. The ego, of course, will very quickly rationalize our decisions, so it's all be taking place very quickly before a hair on our fragile facade is injured. But make no mistake, when you speak poorly about other people, it injures your own self-esteem. Forget about the relationship and forget about the person you just spoke to, including them in the affair as well. So Lamaisa is, the answer to your good question is that when it comes to other averas and the boundaries are very clear, we don't cross them. Because the boundaries are blurry here, in the moment when it's magnified by a distorted perception, you can't trust yourself. So you have to take it off the table, revisit it later, and then decide if it's something you want to say. But in the moment, you're going to make a mistake time and again.
So just to clarify, so you're saying that we shouldn't we shouldn't get into that minefield of, so what would you say about, let's say it's already there. It's already, it's built up for years that, oh, I don't want to call this person back or whatever. It's like it built up. So like, what's
right.
Maybe, obviously it's a process, but what was like maybe a step or two?
Good. So Perky Avos once again says, get yourself a friend, a neighbor, rabbi. You have to, one of the things that even the wisest of men and women can't give themselves is objectivity, right? No matter how intelligent you are, you can't see things objectively when you're a piece of your own puzzle. You have to talk it over with somebody who can give you proper guidance, because they will be able to see things in an objective way that you just can't. And they may conclude you're 100% right, but you can't know that without getting outside input. When your ego's engaged, again, it distorts perspective, and you're going to come up with a corrupted conclusion, and then fortify that with all the emotion, all the reason and rationale. But it's your logic will fail you, because when emotions are involved, and Chazal talk about the value of emotions, but you have to lead with your intellect and then bring your emotions behind it. If you lead with your emotions, then you fortify a distorted conclusion with all the reason and rationale that makes perfect sense, except you're fortifying something that's nonsensical or illogical to begin with.
Yeah. So I think we'll just I think we addressed a lot of different pointers on this on 3 weeks. I think maybe if we could just end off with like we know that like it says like Misha Nichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha, so that we increase our happiness when the month of Adar comes. So we're in month of Av now, so it says Mimatim B'Simcha. So we're supposed to like decrease our happiness, or like that type of concept. I don't know if that's the right translation, but so what's like our mindset of like during this time period when we greet our fellow, like are we greeting them still with a savor upon him yafa, with a smile, like, and just in ourselves, like we're always supposed to be in a state of happiness, like what's like the
The question is so I'm if right now the avoda is to appreciate the seriousness of the context of the period that we're in. Doesn't mean we have to walk around, dour and depressed. Certainly not. But we have to appreciate the gravity. These are serious times leading up to Tisha B'Av. And when we have an obligation to amp up the simcha and that is our avoda, one of the easiest, best ways to do that is just to focus on the positivity. And maybe next time we'll walk through sort of the math on that. But when you look for the good and you appreciate the good and you have a sense of a karas tov and gratitude, you're going to be joyful. The people in your life who are the most happy are the ones who have a sense of appreciation for others, for themselves, and for things that happen. So you can always find something to be miserable about. You always find something to be annoyed about in yourself, in the world, and others are frustrated about. But the avoda during that time to infuse ourselves with simcha is to look and find the positive. And once again, maybe for another time, but it's fascinating. I talk a lot about this on Torah Anytime. There's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, and its job is to hone in and to pick up like an antenna on what's important. So you will literally, when you look for the good, you will find the good. If it's one thing, by the way, that I believe that can change profoundly the quality of people's lives immediately, is by looking for the good. Just today, 24 hours, just making your avoda, whatever's going to happen, you're just going to look for the good. And I'm telling you, will move through your life with just a different experience.
So you're saying that even no matter what month or what time period of the year, we still always have to have that mindset. We're still always looking for the good, always looking for the positivity and the happiness.
For sure. Now, sometimes it's more we can see Hashem's hand, so it's more visible to us. But make no mistake, even in the darkness, there is light. And when we look for the light, we'll find the light. But if you just focus on the darkness, you're going to be buried in misery time and again. Life comes down to our focus. Focus creates our thoughts are emotions. Change your focus, you change your life.
Okay, great. So I think that will conclude the class, and we want to remind everyone to some people submitted questions, which I'm saying it wasn't about the 3 weeks, so we didn't address it this time, but hopefully I'm saying we will address it in future classes. And to feel free, everyone, to submit your questions. You could email us at events@chazaq.org, events@chazaq.org, or you could text or call 718-285-9132. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.